Any particular memories or ideas that you will take with you?
That's a good question. We were speaking during breaks with several participants. When was the last time? And there was a Pan-Baltic Capital Markets conferences. There were mixed feelings, but I think the last time it was 2016 in Tallinn. So it just goes to show how important these are. I mean, to see a crowd of 280 something attendees here all across the Baltic countries, it shows how important it is. And I think one of the key takeaways is that you really need to have the collaboration. I mean, it sounds so simple, but simple is not easy to implement. So you need to have collaboration between various stakeholders, the government, the media, the issuers, the advisors, the banks, you name it, exchanges, of course, the investor communities. So I think this conference is something that brought these, or most of these, stakeholders together. And the panels were, I mean, it's just joy to listen to these different views, opinions, and also challenges. What these stakeholders see in this path, to develop the capital markets.
So any advice to the regulators, market participants, other stakeholders?
As I said during my intro, I'm really positively envious of your regulator and your Ministry of Finance team who is working. Maybe you get used to it, that they are doing it. But I think we could use this approach more back home. I think the sandbox idea is, very many initiatives, it requires somebody, it doesn't matter who, from top to own the product, to own this strategy. And it can't be the banks, it can't be the exchanges, it has to be, public sector, somebody from the public sector, because they can contribute also public funding, and they would be benefiting, I believe, the most when the people become shareholders. They would be able to basically cover their needs, financial needs, by investing, right? So this building this financial literacy, and at the same time this capital markets where issuers have the possibility to really raise capital for their ambitious plans. It needs to be one of the key priorities for, I think, any government. And good example, I was in South Korea with your people from the Ministry of Finance in 2019. And guess who is in charge of capital markets development in South Korea, which is considered ATM for Asia. It is so liquid, it is so well performing. It's the FSA, it's the local regulator. And I was thinking, how is it possible? But they are responsible for everything, starting from the sandboxes to angel investing to our kinds of First North. The whole cycle is the South Korean regulator. So whether this is the case or whether it is a combination, but without local public sector, it's nothing is impossible, but it's so much. It takes so much longer time.
Yeah, but the investor Thomas is a good example of that. To my taste, but it's hard to imagine in the Baltics that will happen. That the FSA in South Korea is responsible for that. For me, it's a big news.
For retail investors, I totally agree that it's communities, it's the media, and it's the stakeholders who can really develop it. But really to set the strategy, why do we need to have a working capital markets? I think this is something that needs to come from the public sector, because many panelists today said that size is something that the institutional investor and the international investor is looking for. Our biggest IPOs in Estonia have been two state-owned enterprises, the Port of Tallinn and NFS Green. So who can decide? Listing state-owned enterprises is not the government and the ministries. So there I'm saying that the private sector and the cluster organizations and media, they can only do so much, but the final decision to do this has to come from whoever controls basically the enterprises that are state-owned.
So what will outperform next year? Rate of inflation in the Baltics or Nasdaq Baltic Index?
I would hate to see the inflation, but we are so in the top of the Europe with this inflation now that it will be a close call.
So will Nasdaq Baltic outperform Euro Stoxx 600 and S&P 500 next year?
Your guess is as good as mine.
And when will the turnover on the Nasdaq Riga catch up with that of Nasdaq Tallinn?
Again, sorry to give such a vague answer, but as soon as you have larger companies and bigger investor base, and then it happens like this.
Will the current market correction or bear market scare off the emerging Baltic retail base from our stock exchanges?
I hope not. I hope not, because the previous drops and corrections haven't. And the only threat, maybe, not the only threat, but one of the threats is really the dropping of life standards and the inflation, which has a really big influence to it. That when people really have very limited cash on their hands, then maybe the investing is not the first or even second or even third priority. But I don't think it will drive them off. Maybe it will just set the priorities for a certain time. But I would just like to remind that the best time to buy stocks is during corrections. Now it needs this silver bullet or crystal ball to know when is the bottom.